We shall be looking at key leadership tools. We are continuing in that series, part 2, key leadership tools, part 2. Now, the other time before last week, we looked at some of the keys. The first was the fear of God. The second was that the leader must watch what he says. And then we ended with that fact that the leader must have emotional stability. Now, the next one that follows is that the leader must watch how he hears, and what he hears. The leader must watch how he hears and what he hears. Now, the vital thing about leadership is that leadership has to do with gathering a particular set of followers towards a purpose. You are taking them from where they are to a place that they ought to be. That's leadership. So leadership is a movement. It's not static. And therefore, in the movement of leadership, you have voices, because a leader is one of the itemized voice of the followers. When you become a leader, you are not going to be open to a single voice like when you were a private person. As a private person, you can make your choice, independent choice, individual choices. You choose who to listen to and who not to listen to. But as a leader, everybody wants to talk to you. The crowd is your people. Everybody. Now, but out of this 100% that wants to talk to you as a leader, only about 20% can be able to give you keys that will help in your leadership spree. So, as a leader, for you to gain understanding and insight to be able to carry out your purpose, you need to know how to listen. That's why Jesus in Mark 4:24, I think so, he said, we should be careful. Take heed unto what, King James says, take heed to what you hear. In other words, be careful how you hear. Now, in hearing, I'll quickly make an explanation. Hearing has to do with 4 key things that are in a statement. When you make a statement, there are 4 key things in a statement. The first thing that somebody hears in a statement is sound. The person first hears a sound. We all make sound when we speak. The second thing in a statement are words. The third thing in a statement is the message. The last thing in a statement is the meaning. Most of the time, you can jump from sound to meaning. When you do that, you didn't hear well. You've heard wrongly. For example, I tell you, hey, come here. I made a sound, hey. Then I said, come here. Now you can judge from that my sound and say, why did he shout, hey? Is he trying to insult me? Now you have left the come here and you are focusing on the hey. And you are looking at my demeanor. How I looked when I sounded that hey. And then you concluded. The meaning that you gave to it is that I am commanding you. Then after that, you may take the hey and then you go to the next one, which is come here. The come here are words. You jump from the come here to the meaning and you say, come here. Come here means come here, which is you are commanding me. But that come here may also have different meaning. It may be a plea to say, please come here. But because I use the word, hey, come here, the first thing you did was to assign the sound meaning to it. The second one, you are doing the word meaning to it. You are getting it wrong. The next one is the message. What is the message inside the hey, come here? That message, you can also misinterpret it. That I am trying to still command you. But the truth is that the person who is making the statement knows exactly what he's saying. The problem is not with the person who is making the statement. He knows exactly what he's saying. The problem is with the person who is hearing the statement. That's why Jesus said, take heed how you hear. Because how you hear will form your reaction. It is the way you perceive the statement to be. That's the way you are going to react. If you perceive it as an insult, it will come as an insult. If you perceive it as a statement of respect, it will come as a statement of respect. So as a leader, we must be careful how we hear. That is why when Jesus spoke, he said something after all his speeches. Most of them, in fact, he will tell you, they who have ears to hear, let them hear. That means that it's not everybody that hears well. Everybody listens, but not everybody hears well. So those who have ears to hear are leaders. Leaders ought to have ears to hear. They are the ones who can go deep to be able to perceive and understand that language, the message, the sound, the words, and ascribe the very meaning to it. You see, the crisis in the world is made up of two parental things that affects the society. Number one, what a leader says. Two, how a leader understands what is said. Because whatever is said will become the instrument upon which the leader will work with. Like I said, 20% of the 100% are actually the ones telling you what you need. 80%, they are not telling you what you need. But everybody wants to talk to the leader, and the leader must listen. So now, in assessing how you hear, what is one of the recommended ways? Now look at it. In simple English language, you have what is called part of speech. You have what is called figure of speech. In construction of English language, when you speak. Now, if you know basic English language, you know that some people can use what is called parables to send a message, like Jesus did. Some people can use what is called hyperbolic statements. Some people can use what is called metaphoric statements and the likes to send a message to you. Now, the person who is using those languages, because it's coming from his heart, the heart cannot be deceived. He knows exactly what he's saying and what he means. So the problem is not with the person. The problem is you, the leader, who is listening. And that is why most of the time when somebody is talking, you don't interrupt the person. Allow the person to land. And if the person lands and you feel it's not clear to you, ask, what do you mean by this? Once you say, what do you mean by this? Or you say, I don't understand practically what you are trying to convey. The person will explain. When you explain, that's when you grab the person. Are you getting the point? But if you just interject without allowing the person to conclude, you may make a false narrative of whatever the person is saying. Because the person is speaking not from words only, he's speaking from the heart. And you can't get into somebody's heart to know his heart. You only know his heart through his words. And for you to get the perfection of what he's actually saying, you need to listen carefully. You need to focus. You don't need to interrupt. You need to finish. And you need to, if possible, ask him. That is why when teachers teach in classes, they tell you, the students, Do you understand? Everybody will say, yes, sir. And then when the teacher asks question, the students are failing. That means they didn't understand. So that is how language is. Let me just give a practical instance of Wednesday Bible study. Even when I entered the car, we were driving, some people were still asking me for the clarity of explanation of what the statement I made about the song I was trying to pass a message. I still have to do some explanation. Now, even if you wake me up in the midnight, I who spoke it, I know what I intended to convey. And I know the meaning. You get it? But initially, everybody didn't catch what I was trying to say. Everybody had their own, So in such a state, you try to get to understand the person. What exactly are you trying to say? When he goes, directly opposite, you'll be able to. So I was able to explain. They say, okay, it's when you said the last bit of explanation, that is when it became clear to us. So that is how it is. So a leader, you must always pay attention. You listen carefully. You don't jump to conclusion. Because if you do that, you may scatter every arrangement that is there. Praise the name of the Lord. Now, the next one is a leader must be humble. A leader must be humble. What is humility? Humility is not talking about you having a low self-esteem. That's not humility. I will explain humility in this way. Humility is a balance between low self-esteem and high self-esteem. I take it once again. Humility is a balance between low self-esteem and high self-esteem. What do I mean by that? Humility is for a person to have a moderate view of his self-worth or importance. In other words, humility means that you don't relate with people based on your status, based on your position, based on who you are. But you consider everybody and take everybody at the same level. So you bring yourself down to the level of everybody. Not that you are now relating with them based on status. And humility is a strength. It's not a weakness. Most of the time people think when you are humble, you are weak. No. You are very strong. The Bible said that it was through humility that Jesus submitted himself to die on the cross. So you see the strength of Jesus. When he died on the cross, what happened? Through humility. He resurrected with power. And with that humble behavior, we are all attracted to him through the preaching of the gospel. Which means Jesus, who humbled himself, even to the death on the cross, is a very strong person. But those who killed him interpreted it to be weakness. In fact, Peter drew the sword, thinking that, look, let's deal with them. They didn't know that there was something written about this person. Secondly, look again at the life of Jesus. He is the master. He is the one that is leading. Everybody is under him. But at a point, he brought out towel and began to wash the feet of his own disciples, the follower. Now, no master will do that. But they didn't know that every action of Jesus had a meaning. He didn't just do things. There was something about it. He was trying to pass a message. And then Peter, of course, his gra way. He shouted. He said, Master, you can't wash my feet, which is very correct. The servant is supposed to wash the feet of the master. Now the master is washing the feet of the servant. He said, you can't wash my feet. Then Jesus said, if I do not wash your feet, you are not part of me. Then what was Peter's reply? Please, master, not only my feet, but all my body, my head, my hand, everything, wash it. He now understands what humility is all about. All what Jesus was teaching them was to be what you call, which modern day now we are trying to learn it, is called servant leadership. You remember the 7-point agenda of President Yaradua. He was the only one who brought the 7-point agenda. And after that, he talked about servant leadership. He was the one that was able to solve the problem of the Niger Delta by introducing amnesty to bring peace. If it's all this regime, we would have been having those crises till now because they'll try to fight back and the boys will fight back. He used wisdom to be able to solve that problem. So humility is very key. Look at the life of Moses. Moses was the master. And in the scripture, we are told that God, at the time of Moses, said he is the meekest of every man on the face of the earth. That is when you talk about humility, Moses, nobody could be compared to him. Now, look at the life of, I want to still show you strength in humility. Look at the life of Moses. If you study the book of Micah, I think it's chapter 4, I'm not so certain. I think verse 4, verse 3. It tells you, one of the shocking things I saw is that Micah the prophet made us to understand that God sent Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. That was the first time I saw that. All of us grew up to understand that God sent Moses. God called Moses. And we saw in that same Exodus chapter 3 how Aaron was brought in to be his prophet. And Miriam, the elder sister of Moses, we didn't even see her activities until the crossing of the Red Sea, when she composed a song and led the whole people to fellowship in worshiping God. But Micah the prophet said that God sent Moses, sent Aaron, and sent Miriam to the children of Israel. Now, what is the nexus of the humility point I'm trying to share here? Remember that Aaron and Miriam spoke against Moses, not so. What were their statements? Listen to their statement. Are you the only one that God has spoken to? Now, when you read that in the Old Testament, in Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, Deuteronomy, you will not understand it until you see Micah when he was talking that these guys were actually sent along with Moses. But now listen, did Moses reply? He did not reply. Apart from the fact that they are his elder brother and elder sisters, he did not reply. Who replied? God replied. You see what humility is? There is so much strength. A humble man is not foolish. And that's what we think about humility. We think he's not foolish. God replied. And what happened to Miriam? She became automatically leprous. What about Aaron? Aaron was not judged because of the priestly garment he was wearing. But at the appropriate time, when it was taken away from him, he dropped dead on the mountain. So, why will God be angry with Miriam and not angry with Aaron? He was angry with both of them, but he judged one. He delayed the judgment of the other. You see, so you see that humility is not about you being foolish, having a low self-esteem, or that whatever. Humility means that you have buried arrogance and pride. A humble man is not proud. A humble man is not arrogant. So if you find pride and arrogance in a man, he's not humble. That person is not humble. But when you are able to bury your status, who you are, you know there are people that once they appear, they want everybody to know that they have appeared. You are not a humble person. You bury whatever. I went to a place to preach as a guest speaker, and as I arrived, the people didn't know. Those days, I move alone just quietly. I went, parked my car, that was my Serato then, parked it, walked in with my Bible, just like only me. I just walked in, and the protocol and ushers saw me, normal person. I didn't dress, no particular suit. They just called, come. They put me into the congregation. I was mixed there. Now, It was getting to time and they were looking for the guest preacher. And they cannot find the guest preacher. I was sitting with them there. I obeyed the people. I didn't tell them I am the guest preacher. So if I said that too, it's not wrong. Mind you, it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. They would definitely. But why did I do that? I wanted to learn something. I wanted to also see, the work of the ushers, whether they know their work. So I covered my identity. It was later the pastor spotted me somewhere and he was blaming them. He said, why did you take the guest preacher to go and sit in the congregation? I said, we didn't know. So I now called him. I said, don't blame them. I am the one who told them that they should put me. I followed their instruction to sit there. Are you getting the point I'm trying to say? But if sometimes I try to drag and they don't know me, particularly a big church, they don't know me, I'm the guest speaker, and I say I'm the guest speaker, I'm not looking like one of them, and they begin to argue with me at the door, what will happen? There will be commotion going because I didn't dress like one of them. I just went simply. So humility is very, very important. All right, we'll stop here. Next week we'll continue with this series. God bless you.